Hey there, folks. I want to welcome you guys back to some lecture captures. So now that we've actually finished our Unit 3.1 quiz, we're moving right on to cell transport. We're going to be talking about how we get materials into and out of cells. And of course, this starts with the cell membrane. All right, this is the structure that's actually going to allow certain materials to come in, but actually prevent certain materials from entering or leaving as well. Right here are the two things that I'm asking you guys to do. Please listen to the lecture. Don't just write down what you're seeing me write, okay? And number two, fill out that vocab section. I think that's going to help learning and understanding a lot more. Okay, so you guys have seen this slide before, and you should all know exactly what we're looking at. Okay, you guys see a bunch of lipids here, and you see that what we have formed is actually the bilayer. Okay, and you guys know that the lipid bilayer is actually made up of two layers. And it's made up of two layers because, right, we have these hydrophilic heads and we have these hydrophobic tails that come off of them, right? And you guys will notice that the hydrophilic heads face the outside of the bilayer, while the hydrophobic tails face the inside of the bilayer. And if you guys correctly recall, hydrophilic, this is water loving, right? It likes water, it'll face it on the outside of this bilayer, right? Whereas hydrophobic means water hating. Okay, it's basically scared of this water. And if you guys look at this great diagram, you'll see that we have the hydrophilic heads, right? These guys all face outwards towards the water, right? Whereas these hydrophobic tails we have, right? You guys will see that these all face inward towards one another, right? They're away from the water. Okay, so that's a total recap on what we've done so far. What we're going to get into now are a little more complex ideas about the cell membrane. And by the way, CM equals cell membrane. Okay, cool. So, why do cells need a membrane? To this, I basically ask, why do we need skin? Or a roof over our heads? Okay, basically the plasma membrane or the cell membrane, right? It acts very similar to any boundary that we have in our body. Okay, and the main one that we can say we have is skin. Okay, what it's able to do is that it can separate a cell's inside contents, okay, from everything that's outside. Basically, think about how, in your house, right, all of the stuff that you own stays inside your house and it separates it from everything that's outside. Okay, a cell membrane does something very similar for a cell. Okay, so the other thing that it can do is protect the cell. Okay, very similar to how our skin acts for our body. Okay, the third thing is that it actually can allow communication between different cells. The way it does this is actually through the aid of proteins. And you guys are going to learn a lot more about this unit, okay? So Communication. That's a big one. And lastly, this is probably the most important one on this page that we're going to spend the most time on, is that it regulates the transport of materials into and out of the cell. This is really cool, and there's definitely different methods that we're going to talk about, and this is a very important thing, because not only does cell need new materials, a cell also needs to get rid of waste. So, I thought this was a pretty cool picture. So this is just zooming in on a cell, and you can see that aside from the lipids that are here, there's actually some other things going on. And this is what we're going to be learning about in this lecture. Okay, so firstly, some more stuff that you're probably more comfortable with is that lipids, these guys make up the majority of the plasma membrane, okay? And actually, there's a major type that we're going to focus on, and this is called a phospholipid. Okay, where phospho it means the element phosphorus. Okay, so there's phosphorus in this type of lipid. Okay, now once again, you guys can recall that we have this hydrophilic head, right? And then we have these two little hydrophobic tails that come off. Okay, and what I want to see you guys, this is a really good picture actually. I want to see you guys understand is that this hydrophilic head, okay, that we're talking about right here is actually a phosphate group, okay? The phosphate group is what gives us the positive charge that we have. So if you guys want to write that this is the phosphate group. Okay, that's what is the positively charged part of the lipid that's attracted to water. Okay, whereas this part here, right, our hydrophobic tail is actually this. All right, and that there is actually going to be the lipid part. Okay? So it's this phosphate group, as I just said, that's charged. Try to get a different color for you guys here. All right, it's positively charged. And anything with a charge is considered to be polar. Okay, so whether it's positively charged or negatively charged, if we say it's polar, that means that there's a charge to it. Okay, and it's this polar phosphate group that makes up the head group that is attracted to water. And as I just said, if you guys look here, right, it's this hydrophilic head, which also happens to be polar, okay, that is attracted to water, okay? And if you guys look right here, you can see our phosphate group, okay? So it's actually the two lipid tails, right? Let's change this color real quick. All right, that are nonpolar. So you guys can assume that this has no charge. Okay, and these are actually what is scared of water. Okay, and these are right here. Okay, we have our two hydrophobic tails right there, and these are, of course, lipids. All right, so a lot going on there. And again, it's just understanding these words: hydrophilic, hydrophobic, polar, and nonpolar. Okay, something that's hydrophilic is going to be polar. Okay. So now we're going to be going into the second part of the plasma membrane structure. Okay, and that is actually going to be focusing on proteins. Okay. Proteins serve three major functions in the cell membrane. Okay. The first one, these guys actually serve as identity markers. Okay, based on the different proteins that are in a cell membrane, we can actually determine if a cell is to be a self cell or if it's foreign. Okay. This is very important in our immune response because germs, bacteria, whatever you guys really want to call them, they have a different cell membrane protein makeup than us. And that's actually how our body is able to identify what is us and what is not us. Okay? And if you guys look here, you can see that this right here, okay, this is the protein. And up top here, that is the identity marker. That is going to be different for a human cell and a dog cell or a germ cell, okay? Anything that's not self. What happens is that they can actually also act as receptors for signaling molecules, meaning that proteins in the cell membrane allow for communication between cells. So, how we communicate in words, right? Cells actually communicate in signaling molecules. And of course, these have to bind to a protein. And if you guys look right here, what I'm outlining is the protein receptor. Okay. And then what I'm outlining in orange up top, this is the signaling molecule. Okay, and it's the signaling molecule that binds to this protein receptor and is able to actually send a signal into the cell. Okay, it communicates. And last but not least, this one is super duper important. Proteins are able to transport different molecules into and out of the cell. And as you guys can see way over here, it's able to take different molecules on the outside. It can send them right through the protein and they land on inside the cell. Okay. Cool. So those are the three main functions of proteins. Okay. And I want to highlight that this whole thing is about proteins. Just as the previous slide was about lipids, okay, because those are the two main constituents of the cell membrane. All right, and this last idea that I want you guys to understand is the concept of something that is semi-permeable. Okay, semi means partly, so not completely, right? Just a small amount. Was permeable means to pass through. Okay, therefore, the word semi-permeable equals some things pass through. Not all. Okay? Just some things. So, what can pass through the cell membrane directly? That is, what can just go right through and right out without actually being regulated? The only thing that is able to do this are small non-polar molecules. And remember, non-polar means not charged. Okay? These molecules do not, right? They do not have charges that are associated with them, and their size is so small that they can actually pass right through the membrane directly through the cell. Okay? And if you notice, we have examples here, right? We have right here is oxygen, which is O2. And right here we have carbon dioxide, which is CO2. And these, right, you don't see that there's any charges associated with them, okay? And they're also very small. So these guys can go directly into and out of the cell, no problem, okay? Now, what cannot pass directly through, okay? These are anything that are small and charged, okay? Charged and polar. Anything that's large and nonpolar, okay? And anything that's large and so this is the opposite of what's on left, okay? They're either small and charged or they're large and large, okay? That's the big takeaway. And if you guys notice, right here, this is small but charged. And we can tell by this, right, that 3 negative, okay? And this is also small but charged, all right? And this is water. Okay, so this is just two very common things. This is a nitrogen ion. And this right here is water. Okay, and neither of these things can actually pass directly through the cell membrane like oxygen or carbon dioxide could. Okay, last but not least, here is the vocab. One big takeaway that I want you to remember: polar equals charged, nonpolar equals not charged. All right, this is going to be our takeaway. And this idea of what can enter a cell directly and what cannot. Fill this out here. And if you have any questions, please raise your hands. I hope you guys are really enjoying this. We're actually getting into some complex stuff now. So I expect that you guys have questions. Please don't feel bad if you do. All right? Raise your hand, ask me some stuff, and move on to your independent practice.